Hello and welcome to another hobby podcast. I've been working on a bunch of different hobbies and projects over the past week that I cannot wait to share with you. Today I have some knitting, some crochet, and I think a few beaded necklaces that I made over the weekend. So we're going to start with my knitting, and the first whip I want to talk about is my Juno Clutch by Petite Knit. Here it is. This is my Juno Clutch by Petite Knit. As you can tell, it is cast off and the ends are woven in, but it is not fully finished. I still have to add the frame and lining. But this pattern was an absolute treat to knit. I knit this up on 3.25 millimeter needles, which is a 1/4 millimeter larger than recommended. And the yarn I used is Barocco's Modern Linen in the color Spice, which is, I think, a perfect name for this. This is like a very smoked paprika. I don't know why that word is hard for me to say. Smoked paprika-y color, kind of like sun-dried tomato-y. Spice is, I think, the perfect way to describe this gorgeous, gorgeous red. And like I said, I absolutely adored knitting this pattern. It was a very quick knit for me. I think it was on my needles for about a week and a half. I had so much fun working on this. I found that the stitch pattern is the perfect balance between mindless and mindful. I could easily hold a conversation while working on this pattern, but it wasn't maybe as dull as stockinette can be, although I am a stockinette super fan, but this like kept me engaged but not frustrated or bored. I found it to be a really wonderful stitch pattern, especially because you're doing the same thing over and over again, and it's basically a 2-row repeat, technically a 4-row repeat, but it's the same 2 rows over and over again in slightly different way. So you start this pattern by knitting the bottom of the clutch. It is knit flat and it has this nice little center seam going down the middle of the base of the clutch. You then pick up and knit in the round for the majority of the body of the clutch, and you finish by knitting a couple of rows in stockinette at the end to make the portion that will go over the clutch frame for like the handle, I guess. I love the stitch pattern, and I found it to be, as I said, a pretty easy to understand or to memorize lace pattern. This is the second lace project that I've ever attempted and my first finished lace project. And I actually think that this could be a good 4th or 5th project for maybe an ambitious beginner knitter. I would say I'm an overly confident beginner knitter, maybe advanced beginner knitter. I think if you are slightly delusional, maybe a little overconfident with your knitting skills, and you want to knit this and you've only knit like 2 or 3 things before, I think you can do it. In order to do this, all you really need to know how to do is knit and purl stitches, and through this you can learn how to pick up stitches, pass stitches, and slip stitches. That's, I think, basically all you really need to know for this. The only thing that might be a little difficult is figuring out how to troubleshoot in case you make a mistake or drop a stitch. So this might be a slightly more mindful project for a beginner. However, I made some mistakes, which I think you can definitely see after blocking. I think you can see them. I have one here and then one here. I don't quite know what happened. I was knitting this in the car the day after a wedding, and I think I just made some mistakes. It happens. This side, I got a little mistake here, but I think it's not horribly noticeable. I think I ended up slipping one the wrong way, so it got a little funky, but that's okay. It's handmade. I think that's, part of the process here. But if you are a beginner knitter and you're okay with troubleshooting mistakes or feeling a little bit of frustration while you try to work out what went wrong, if you do mess up at some point, if you have a good a higher frustration tolerance, then I would say like absolutely go for this pattern. I will definitely be casting on another one of these in the same yarn. I actually really enjoyed this yarn. I think I mentioned last time it is a little splitty, but I think the linen was absolutely the correct yarn choice for this bag. The combo of the linen yarn, this color, and the stitch pattern just give it this really elegant, earthy look that I absolutely adore. Barocco has a bunch of colors in modern linen that I think would be absolutely fantastic for this clutch. I will put a little array of all of the colors I would like to make this bag in. I think this is going to be such a fantastic summer evening bag for me, and even something that I wear into the fall as we transition seasons much later in the year. It is only mid-May, and I know that's very far away, but I do see myself getting a lot of wear out of this bag. So that is my Juno clutch. If it is finished by the time I upload this video, I will put some pictures of the finished clutch on the screen, but either way, you will see it as a fully finished object in my next podcast. The next whip I have to talk about with you is my Toffee Sweater by Cozy Knits. So here is my Toffee Sweater by Cozy Knits. As I think you can tell, I figured out a way to show my garments without having to hold them up or put them on, which is fantastic for me. This sweater has been quite a journey for me. I really thought this would be an easy sweater for me to knit, and it has been everything but. It is, I think both the pattern and the yarn have been frustrating for me. The way the pattern is written is a little difficult for me to understand. I think it's just not how I prefer patterns to be written. And this yarn, I'm having horrible rowing out with this yarn. But anyways, this sweater is a top-down construction. It is clearly a polo neck sweater with a nice big deep V neck, and it is supposed to be knit in the round for the body, but because of my rowing out, I have decided to knit it flat. So I'm knitting the front panel and the back panel fully flat, and then I will seam up the sides. And I've also decided that I will be knitting the sleeves flat, and I will attach them later on. So as you can see, I have joined the two front panels, and I am now working the front flat. What I did to convert this from an in the round pattern to a flat pattern is basically just take the number of stitches it wanted me to cast on at the underarm, divide that by 2, and then I think I added 1 extra stitch per side for the seam allowance. So I have, for example, this arm over here, half of the stitches that it wanted me to cast on plus 1 are here, and the other half plus 1 will be over here. So then they like meet in the middle, and I have 2 stitches for a seam allowance for when I seam it up. I have never knit a garment flat, so I'm kind of winging it. I did spend a lot of time Googling and reading online, Reddit threads and resources and everything, so I think I understand what I'm supposed to do. I really don't think it's too complicated unless I'm just like missing something and it seems not that complicated to me, but so far so good. I am happy with how this is going so far. The rowing out is continuing beautifully throughout the body. I already see like the second row I knit has some rowing out, but that was the purpose of this, because I didn't want it to go from like rowing out ugliness to perfection, to like smooth and no rowing out. So this is just to kind of keep it consistently rustic throughout. One other thing I do want to say about this sweater is kind of about my self-imposed deadlines I've been putting on myself with this. I think I had originally wanted this finished for April. That went out the window clearly months ago. And then I said I wanted this finished for our trip to Spain in late June. We're going to be in San Sebastian, which I've heard can be a little chilly. But anyways, what I've determined is that I will not be wearing this in Spain. So that Spain deadline is gone. I have more projects that are, for me, more important to have on our Spain trip than this sweater. I've also decided that this probably isn't a sweater I will wear in New York, just because it does have that kind of slightly more messier, rustic look. And not that rustic is a bad thing whatsoever. I've knit rustic sweaters before. I have more rustic clothing, but it's just not something I really see myself wearing in the city. With my Spain deadline being out of the picture and this being a much more rustic sweater, I have kind of come to the conclusion that I will most likely only be wearing this in Vermont or at the beach. And I go to the beach maybe once a year, but I am in Vermont like 4 to 8 weeks out of the year. So I think I've decided that this will be my Vermont sweater. So my brand new, very loose, very self-imposed deadline to finish my Toffee sweater is by my August Vermont trip. And if I'm finishing it on that trip and blocking it while I'm up there, that's totally fine. But that gives me, I think, the next like 6 or so weeks to focus on all of my Spain projects that I have in the queue that I really want to bring with me to Spain. And then when we get back, I can refocus my attention on this. However, I am like 3 inches away from my belly button right now, and I only want it to go about an inch or two past my belly button. I want it to be a bit shorter to wear with like high-waisted jeans and shorts without being huge. So I feel like I'm basically almost done with the body, which is wild. This V-neck is just absolutely insanely long. I did not realize it was going to be this long at all. But it is what it is. As I mentioned I think in the last podcast episode, this sweater has been a massive learning experiment for me, and I have enjoyed it in that sense. But that is the update on my Toffee sweater by Cozy Knits. My next whip is one that has not had any love over the past week, but now that I've realized I can use my little steamer hanger for showing my garments, I want to put it on it so you can see it. So this is my Micaela sweater by Morica Knit. I finished the body last week, or I guess like a week and a half ago at this point. I guess you can't see it fully, but there it is. I finished the body about a week and a half ago at this point, and I have just the neckline and the sleeves left to do. I haven't really been working on this too much. It's just hasn't been the weather for like a mohair woolly sweater, but hopefully I will finish the neckline, or at least start one of the sleeves this weekend. So this is just to say it still exists, and it is still very much so an active whip that hopefully you will see some progress on very soon. That is it for knitting. We are now going to move into my 2 crochet projects. One is a new project that you have not seen, and the other you have seen before, which is my vintage green crochet dress. So this is my vintage crochet chartreuse mesh dress, I guess. I really don't know what to call it. It is a vintage pattern that I purchased off of Etsy, and I am making this with Omega crochet thread size 5 in the color Limon, and a 2.75 millimeter little steel crochet hook. So if you were here last week, you would have seen that I finished the first panel of the bodice, and now I am working on the second panel. So this is what I have for the second bodice panel. It could be front or back, it could be either of them. They're basically the same, so I think they're interchangeable. But last week I was talking about how in this panel I felt like the armholes were too shallow, so I needed to deepen the armholes either by lengthening the straps or going back and increasing, I guess, like the straight part of the armholes before this like neckline shaping starts. And I've come up with a bit of a plan. I have decided that on this back panel, I am going to, I'll show it on this one what I'm planning on doing. So I am going to do the armholes just as it's done. And then once I get to the neckline here, I'm going to keep going with this until I feel like the armpit is at a good enough depth, and then I will add these straps. So I'll measure however long the little strappy portion is, and see where I want that to hit me on my body. And what I'll do is add probably 2 inches to the straight section of the armhole before doing this neckline shaping, if that makes sense. So I'll do that to the back panel, see how I like it, and if I like it, take off the straps from the front panel and redo it to match the back. Does that make sense? I don't know if that's making sense or if I explained that well. This is only my 3rd crochet project, so struggling with terminology. But anyways, that is the plan. I hope that made some sense. You'll see it in my next video because I'm hoping to do that this week. And then once that is complete, I will be seaming up the sides of this bodice and seaming the straps together, and then picking up and crocheting the skirt, which is very exciting. So I have been thinking about how I want to seam up the straps and the sides of this bodice. The pattern does not specify how to, it just says to join them together. So I've been looking up some different ways to seam pieces of crochet together. And there are 2 different ways that I am between. The first way that I am thinking about is to just do like a single crochet seam connection. So I thought maybe like a single crochet going up the sides and across the shoulders could be cute. But then I was thinking that single crochet won't flow into the skirt because the skirt is is crocheted in the round. So will it look weird to have like these single crochet seams going down from the armpit to like the waist and then they just stop? I don't know. That was my first thought. My second thought is to continue with the mesh pattern, and I found a video that shows how to join 2 pieces of crochet together, kind of following this meshy stitch pattern, this mesh look. So that is the second way to attach these pieces together that I am thinking about, but I want to practice seaming crochet because I've never done that before. I just want something a little smaller to practice on. So I started working on something that you have not seen before, and that is this little mesh fish pouch right here. It's this kind of filet crochet little fish pouch. I am making this using Loops and Threads crochet cotton, which I believe is a size 10 crochet thread, and I just bought it at Michael's. I bought a big ball of it at Michael's to practice. And what hook am I using? And I am using a 1.25 millimeter little crochet hook. So for this pouch, I am making 2 little panels. They're going to be the same. This is the first one. It's fully finished, and then I've just started the second one. It's not so exciting yet. But I think he is absolutely adorable. I am in love with this little fish. I think it's so, so sweet. I plan on using this mesh join for the sides, and then I will attach the bottoms of both of the panels using a single crochet join. I am not following a pattern for this other than like the little mesh stitch pattern. I cast on, I want to say 56 stitches, and have just been going along and then have been filling in stitches to make my little fish. So this wasn't really supposed to be anything that exciting, but because I think it's absolutely the cutest little thing I've ever seen in the whole world, I have decided I want to actually turn it into a little pouch. So I'm not going to line it, but I do want to add 3 little buttons or beads to the top of this to act as like a closure. I'll do like a little I-cord or chain loop, like 3 on the top on one side and then 3 beads on the other side to help close it together. and I thought it would be really cute to hold like lip balm and AirPods or headphones and hand sanitizer, those types of things, in like a bag for the summer. So with all of that being said, I need a little bit of help in deciding what to use as the little buttons or beads to act as the closure on this little pouch. And I have a few options. My first option are these carnelian cylindrical beads that I think are really pretty, and I think they look really nice with the white thread. They kind of tie into my unofficial, unintentional summer palette, which if you haven't been able to tell what it is yet, you'll be able to tell when I talk about the jewelry, the beading that I've made in a few minutes. But I think this is the first choice, and I do really like them. My only issue with them is that I think they might be a little too big. Now, I do have some other carnelian beads that are small round beads, so that's another option. My next choice are these adorable little off-white pinky pearls. I think these really play into like the oceany theme of it because it is, you know, two little fish. My next option is a little bit of a wild card for me, and that is this imitation turquoise. It is dyed blue magnesite, and it is very, very bright, but it does kind of have this oceany look to it, which again ties in really nicely with the fish. Fish live in the ocean, so it kind of, I don't know, goes along with the theme of the pouch. But I'm just not sure if I like this color. It is a very, very bright blue. And it doesn't feel very me, whereas I think the other two feel much more me than this blue magnesite does. And for my last option, I have these multicolor pearly buttons. I have a bunch of different buttons in a few different colors, and I was thinking maybe this white pearly one, this pinky pearly one, and this yellow pearly one could be really fun. They're still pearly, so again, like the oceany pearly theme still continued, but the yellow and the pink give it a little bit of color, but not too much color. So I'm really torn. I think I'm leaning most towards either the button or the carnelian option, but maybe trying the smaller round carnelian bead instead. But I would love, love, love your help in choosing. I feel really stuck, and so any thoughts, opinions, advice is more than appreciated. So that is it for my little DIY fish, and these are my two crochet projects right now, and I'm loving both of them so much. I really didn't think I would love crochet as much as I am, but I think crochet is going to be like my summer obsession. I love to knit all year round, but for some reason I think I just like cotton more in crochet than I do in knits. So very excited about both of these, and hopefully you will see a little finished fish pouch next time and a lot of progress on this dress. So that is all of my crochet and knitting, and that just leaves me with my last category, which is I think new to me on here, not new to me in life. I've done this before, which is beading. And you are going to see through my beading, if you haven't already been able to tell through some of my earlier projects, I definitely have a summer color palette emerging, and it's not been intentional. I think it's just, I don't know, it's just happened. I'm going to call this color palette a little like aperitivo color palette. That is mainly greens, spicy reds, whites, and a little bit of like orange, I guess, which I actually think is only in my beads, but it kind of reminds me of like olives and an Aperol spritz in a way, or olives and like a sangria. So anyways, this is a very rambly way to say those are the colors I've been mainly working with, and those are the only colors you will see in the beading that I've done. So I have made 3 little necklaces. Oopsie. So I'm gonna start with this one over here. This is a little pearl and glass bead necklace that I made and I just took these little beads and put them on eye pins. I made little like coils and loops with the tops of the eye pins to turn them into charms, and I threaded them onto this silk satin cord that I have. And for the ends, I just took some wire and made these little DIY, I don't know what I would call them, end caps to the end of the cord to kind of like keep it together and try to stop it from fraying. So I don't know if that'll show, but I just took some wire and twisted it around the cord, made a little loop at the end of each, and then to one of them I added a lobster clasp. So that is my little first necklace, although it didn't really need the lobster clasp because you can just put it around your neck, but it's again quite a long necklace. I think I might shorten it because I don't know. I feel like this is a little too long. I kind of like it like there maybe. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts on that one because I just don't know how long to make it. But I do really like it. I think it's really pretty and it'll be very fun to wear in Spain this summer. And then the next two necklaces I made, I will show together. They are both these green and reddy orangey carnelian necklaces. This one is made with some glass beads, some seed beads, and some carnelian beads. And this is much more of a like chokery kind of necklace like that. And then the other one is made with those same green glass beads and carnelian. Some carnelian beads that are, I think, very similar to the ones that I'm thinking of using for the fish pouch. And again, it is similar length. It's like that. So those are just the three little necklaces that I made. They actually coincidentally match two necklaces I made last summer, with one with carnelian and one with, I think, little peridot. I'm not totally sure what the other stone is, but these are the two that I made last summer and they all kind of match. So I don't know, there's all of my beads, all of my little necklaces that I have made all in the same color palette. I purchased all of these beads from Fire Mountain Gems, I think, along with all of the findings. I do for anything that I'm using glass beads in. So I think actually all of these findings for these three are 14 karat gold plated. And then anything that I'm using only like stones in, or like stones and gold, I use 14 karat gold filled. I don't know why I do that, but there are tons of tutorials on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram if you want to make some beaded jewelry. It is really quite fun. It is a really fun rainy day activity and a fun little thing to do with friends too. But those are my little beaded necklaces that I made, and I think that is everything that I worked on over the past week or week and a half. So as always, thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you have a lovely day.